Hi everyone, my name is Rajesh, and in this video we are going to have a look at how exactly the commercial arrangement works between an ERP vendor, ERP service provider and the client. Now, as an aspiring ERP consultant, we often have this dilemma that exactly whom we will be working for. Like for example, if we talk about, let's say, the tier 1 ERP softwares in the market, which are Oracle Cloud or SAP S4 HANA or Microsoft Navision or Dynamics, then are we going to work for these companies which are Oracle, Microsoft or SAP, or are we going to work for someone else? Now in this video, we are going to understand how exactly this arrangement works. First of all, let us understand who all are the parties involved in this overall arrangement. So the first party obviously would be the client organization or the company who actually wants to implement this ERP. The second party will be the ERP vendor. For example, SAP or Oracle or Microsoft and so on and so forth. These are the companies who have actually created this particular ERP products. And the third part of the puzzle is the IT service provider companies. For example, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, or Cognizant, or Accenture, and so on and so forth. Now, what's the role of these companies is something that we are going to understand. As ERP consultants, mainly we will be working with these companies, which are the IT service provider companies. Now, let us see how exactly this particular provision works. Now, let us assume that you are a CEO or a CTO or a CFO in a company, and you decide that we need to implement the ERP software, which is a tier 1 ERP software, because our business has grown to such an extent now wherein managing with some accounting software or some non tier 1 ERP software is no more feasible. The first thing that you will do as a company who wants to implement the ERP is to involve some consultants. So these are not the IT service provider firms. These are ideally the management consulting firms like BCG, McKinsey, or maybe the big four firms like KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, EY, and so on and so forth. The job of these management consulting firms would be, first of all, to figure out what all are the processes in these particular organizations. Secondly, to document these processes in a systematic manner. And thirdly, to identify the gaps in the processes, or let's say the lacks of internal controls in the processes, which can then be fixed by the ERPs that these companies want to implement. Now, as a part of this engagement or as an outcome of this engagement, these management consultants will provide some documented report to these companies saying that this can be an RFP or request for quotation or request for proposal that you can float to various ERP vendors in order to know the capabilities of all of these different ERPs. Now the next question comes as to which particular ERP to choose from. Now, as we have already seen in our previous videos, which by the way, if you have not watched, then I'm giving the link over here. So there are n number of different ERPs out there in the market, and it is not an easy decision to choose which ERP to go for. That's where the company will generally float and request for proposal to various ERP vendors saying that, hey, these are our requirements, and now please answer to this particular document saying that how exactly your product will be capable to answer our requirements or to address our business needs. Now, after careful analysis and comparison of all of these answers that they get from all of these ERP vendors, they will decide one final ERP software with which they want to go for. Now, obviously, this does not only include the requirement fulfillment part, but it also includes certain other factors like, let's say, the cost of that particular ERP, or let's say the references that particular ERP has got in a similar kind of industry or a similar kind of region, and so on and so forth. Now, once this ERP is finalized, what they will do is they will execute an agreement with this particular company, which is the ERP vendor. So in our example, they will execute an agreement with the Oracle Corporation USA. This agreement is essentially the licensing agreement, especially in case of a SaaS or cloud-based software. This agreement states that the company wants maybe the licenses for Oracle Cloud Financials application, or maybe for Oracle Cloud Supply Chain Management application for maybe 10 users or 20 users or 50 users. That kind of agreement will first be executed between the ERP vendor and the company. Now, once this is done, now the next part will be to find out who can be the IT service provider or the implementation partner who can help implement the companies any of these ERPs that they have purchased. Now, this is an essential part because ideally speaking, these are all the business softwares and these are all so vast and so inclusive that they have plenty of options and configurations and alternatives. That's where even though there is no infrastructure needed or no heavy investment needed, they are not literally the plug and play kind of softwares. So even when you have bought the licenses from these companies, you still need some IT service providers or some consulting companies so that they can actually understand your needs in depth and they can implement these ERP softwares for you so that you can actually start using these softwares. Now, these IT service provider companies can be anyone which are like the big IT companies, let's say TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Accenture, Capgemini, and all of these, or maybe certain big four firms like Deloitte, KPMG, EY, PwC. All of these companies also have this kind of ERP consulting division, or there could be certain specialized small companies which are the exclusive partners of these ERP vendors, which are, let's say, SAP or Oracle. Now, the role of us as consultants will actually come into picture over here, that we will ideally be working for these IT service provider companies who will get engaged with the clients to understand their business requirements and to implement the Oracle Cloud or let's say the SAP S4 HANA software as per their requirement, which they have, by the way, already purchased as a part of the licensing arrangement which we saw earlier. Now, even for this IT service provider firms, these companies will have a separate set of RFPs or requests for proposals that may have been prepared by these management consulting firms, which we have seen earlier. What exactly these RFPs will include is more of a process oriented questions, which are like how exactly are the capabilities of these IT service provider firm or how well they know this ERP product so that they can meet the business requirements of the company. Now, once this particular part is finalized, then another agreement will be executed between the company and the IT service provider firm. And post that, the implementation project will actually start. I hope with this video, you have completely understood the role of the ERP consultants and how exactly this overall commercial arrangement works between the ERP vendor, the company or the client, and the ERP service provider or implementation partner. Thank you everyone for watching this video. With the advent of cloud, the ERP solutions are becoming more and more affordable. And that's where even the small and mid-scale organizations are increasingly opting for ERP softwares. What it means for us is ERP consulting as a career option is now more lucrative than ever. So if you are a fresher finance, commerce, and management graduate and want to build your career in the ERP consulting industry, then go visit www.yourerpcoach.com and hit that inquire button right now.